Welcome to Simply Caroline, a podcast dedicated to women empowerment where we will discuss a bunch of different subjects such as life, parenting, love, business, money, relationships, healing, recovery, addiction, entrepreneurship, and so much more. A podcast I'll do my best to keep simple, fun, and relatable and bring you tools to help you better your life. So thank you for being here. And here's your host, myself, Caroline Blanchard. Welcome back, everyone. And today I have an amazing guest, Lissa Figgins, who is a life coach, mother, wife, and entrepreneur, business owner. She has so many different titles that I won't go through the list, but she will talk to us about priorities. Hi, Lissa.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on, Caroline. So fun to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. We're so blessed to have you. You guys will see how much wisdom and knowledge Lissa have. It's like you want to talk with this girl like forever. So Lissa, first of all, I want you to explain how to pronounce your name because you told me that once and I was just like, this is so amazing. I want to find a good sentence like that for my name, and no, there's not.
Yes, it actually happened by accident. So my full name is Melissa. And based on when you know me in life, I was Missy at one point, and then I used Melissa, and then I transitioned to shortening it to Lissa. But people often call me Lisa because they don't realize why there are two S's. So one day I was having a conversation with a woman that I just met, and I was telling her, I said, it's Melissa without the M-E, and then it just rolled off my tongue, this next part, because it's not about me. And that really has been something that, I've just taken on and said, what I'm doing is not about me. It's really about empowering and inspiring women specifically, especially those who are after 40 or close to it, who are really trying to rethink priorities or need to rethink priorities and, are finding that right now life may not be all that they had planned or hoped or expected. And, so how they can make those shifts. So my greatest gift is to serve others. So that's why it's not about me.
Yes, and you're doing it beautifully. And you know what? It oozes out of you that you really always want to help people and help people find their own solutions. But let's talk about priorities, because I think we all think we know our priorities. And probably if you would ask me mine, you would end up saying like, well, are you sure these are the right priorities? Because as a mother, quite often my first priority is my kids. And then whenever something happens with my kids, I'll like swipe everything that I have in my day and I need to focus, like, if you need to go get them at school or if school is canceled or all of this, I end up always like, pushing my days away. And sometimes I tend to forget the priorities because really as a mother, I feel like my kids should be the priorities. But let's talk about this a bit.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great illustration, and kind of thinking about if push came to shove and something happened, like where would I naturally gravitate towards? And that's going to be probably your top priority. So for you, it's, it's your kids. For somebody who doesn't have kids, or maybe their kids are out of the nest. And here's the thing. I want women who are listening to not feel guilty and feel like you have to say that Jesus, your kids, and, something else, giving to the poor are your top priorities. Because I think sometimes we feel guilty because our priorities may not be what we think they should be. And they're going to change in different seasons. But I do want to say that I think most women and men would say, yes, I have priorities. But the question is, like you said, are you sure? Because really what tells what your priorities are is where you spend your time, where you spend your money, and where you spend your energy. And so there are three places that you can look to really determine, is what I'm saying a priority truly what I'm living, right? You want to look at your calendar. That's where your time, that's your time stamp. Where is my time being spent? And if I'm saying that my kids are a priority, but I'm not giving them any space on my calendar, then you have to ask, are they really, right, a priority? Look at your bank account, right? Where am I spending money? And where, what's a priority for me? Maybe it's giving, and that's a priority for you. Maybe it's buying things for your kids. Maybe it's, taking care of debt, whatever it is. Like look at your bank account and then look at, where you spend your energy, which is mostly going to be your thought life. What is it that you tend to be thinking about on repeat over and over again? And I think sometimes if we're honest and we look at those things, we see there's this gap between what we say is a priority and really what we're doing, right?
Well, wow, you just brought me through a movie in my head. Like where do you spend money? Not a lot of people would say my priority is skincare,
Right.
you know, and or my priority is Netflix. So, but it's so true where you spend your time and where you spend your money and energy and thoughts mostly. A lot of us spend time thinking about what happened or what's going to happen. So we live in a different time zone than what we
Right.
should really be living in. But you don't think about that when you set priorities. I think that, we're used to, okay, beginning of the year, sit down, set your priorities, set your goals, and then don't look at them until the end of the year and then evaluate if you did something about it. But can you give us like advice or wisdom on how not to do that?
Right. Well, first thing, you have to decide that it's important. And I like to use the illustration of when most of us are mothers, and so we know what it was like to have a child placed in our arms. And I'm guessing that prior to that child being placed in your arms, you probably weren't sitting around just twiddling your thumbs, saying, I have nothing to do all day and all night. Why don't I bring something into my life that is going to consume my life for the next 18 plus years, cost me thousands of dollars, cost me loss of sleep, cost me, worry and stress and time on my knees and all the things, right? I mean, we're not just saying, yeah, I want to invite that into my life, but what happens when that baby is placed in your arm? And your arms, no matter how busy your life was, just 30 seconds before or an hour, 2 weeks before, you find space because that baby is a priority, right? And so I truly believe that we create space for the things that have value and that are important. And I think here's the hard thing. We're especially, for women, because that's who I mostly speak to as women, we're nurturers, we're caretakers, we're givers, we're serving, right? We're always making about other people. We're always taking, it off of us and thinking about other people. And so oftentimes I think that women can think, well, if I prioritize me, right? Like you brought up the example of skincare, that is not a wrong or bad priority, right? Taking good care of your skin, because it's literally the only skin you're going to have for your entire life, is important, right? And not exposing your body to toxins and chemicals that can absorb in through your skin. Like those are important things. And so yet so many women think, if I spend time, if I spend money, if I spend energy thinking about me, that's selfish. And I like to flip things on its head and say, you know what? If you are not prioritizing you, I think that is selfish, because here's what happens. If you are not refueling yourself, if you are not filling your cup, right? What happens when you want to be with your kids or your significant other, or you want to engage with somebody like as a part of your business or your career, your field of work? You don't have very much to give. And that person is going to get less of you because you have less to give. In my mind, that's selfish, because I could have done something to fill myself up so that I could fully give, all that I am and all, give abundantly, rather than doing the martyr syndrome and saying, oh, woe is me. One day I'll get around to it. Someday, all those things that we tell ourselves. So I think that's the first place to start, is that you are worth it. You are a priority. And it's, it is going to allow you to better give, love, serve, do all the things that you do when you put yourself in that place of priority.
And I think that, a big part of that is changing our mindset, because what you talked about as well, like I have so many old stigmas coming back to me. Mm-hmm. And like I was raised saying, don't be pretentious, don't brag, don't think only about yourself, like all of these things. So you go out there thinking like, well, I can't say this about me because I'm bragging. I can't put myself first because that's selfish. I can't. Right. And so it's a big mindset change that I feel like I was going to say our millennials, because I do have some kids that are now millennials. They don't feel the same way, because we didn't raise them the same way. We raised them saying like, oh my, like my little one, since she's born, I'm telling her, you're strong, you're powerful, you're beautiful, you're intelligent. and you should be like, love yourself. So since she's little, I'll ask her, who do you love the most? And well, not now anymore because she's a teenager, but until she wasn't a teenager, she was just like, well, really, Mama? It's like, first it's me, but then right after, it's you and Papa.
Oh,
But
that's so
it's
sweet.
like, I would have never been saying that, when I was younger,
Mhm.
because then I would have felt so much guilt.
Right.
But I did learn as you grow up that if you're not in love with yourself first, it's really hard to actually, give and be there for the others. Because, like you were saying, as a newish mother at first, my intentions were to spend like 23 hours on 24 on my kids. And
Right.
if I wasn't doing that, I was just like, and then yes, you feel like, oh, I don't have the time for this, I don't have the time for that. And then at some point, you snap on your kids because you're
Right.
done and you need rescue. So, absolutely, prioritize yourself is a huge one. And I even have actually girlfriends that are not mothers, and they act the same way. They
Mhm.
just they just nurture everyone around them.
Right.
They're the mother of the group. So I think it's a lot of that is in us. But mothering aside, how do you set your priorities if we want to say about, let's say I have my fitness priorities, I have my family priorities, and I have my business priorities. And
Right.
then we should all include the self-care priority. And I think
Right.
that this one, we leave it aside a lot because that's what we just talked about, don't
Right.
put too much time
Yeah.
on yourself. But how would you coach someone to
Sure.
navigate that properly?
Sure. Well, one thing I want to say is that your priorities can change. We kind of touched on this earlier, and that's for me. I kind of discovered all of this myself at 40. And I always joke and say, if I could have learned all this at 20, oh my goodness, where could I be now? But my priorities were different back then, right? I was focused on different things. I was focused on my career. I was focused on building a family. I was focused on, just doing all those things that I had always wanted to do. And those weren't bad. But I think once you hit a certain point, for a lot of women, it's around 40. It can be plus or minus, 10, 15 years on either side. And I always say after 40, anyone after 40 is in the club because, we're in that next stage of life. But you start rethinking what really matters, right? It's not just about doing. Now it's about being, right? It's about the legacy. It's about the impact. It's about, those types of things versus the getting and the having. And, those pictures that we always had as a little girl of what we wanted things to look like. So giving yourself permission to say, maybe I need to rethink this. And I think that's something that we always need to come back to because, even after a certain age, we are continually growing, hopefully, because I used an illustration a couple weeks ago about it's like trying to ride a bicycle. And if you stop and stay in one place and try to stay balanced, you're not going to stay balanced. We are created to be goal-seeking machines, to be moving towards something. So no matter where you are in life, we always want to be continuing to move towards something. And that's really, really key. So what I find is that it's very easy to get tunnel focused with our priorities, right? Like when we're in that mom stage, it's all about our kids. And when we're in, this career stage, it's all about our career or our business. And then, maybe it's empty nest stage and it's all about, whatever it is in that
We're
stage of
getting
life.
there on.
Right. Right. And while there may be a little bit different focus, I don't think there's such a thing as complete balance where every single thing is exactly getting the same attention as others. But I think it's really important to, on a regular basis, to really kind of take a look at where am I in all different areas of your life. So you mentioned several of them. When I coach my clients, to make them easy to remember, they all start with F. So we look at faith, family, friends, field of work, which can be a business, it can be volunteering, it can be full-time mom or full-time grandma, whatever you're spending your time doing, finances, fitness, which is anything health related, and fun, right? And so I know for me, fun was my lowest priority because in my mind, I was busy focusing on my family and my field of work and my faith and, and those things. And so I didn't really make time for fun. And I would often kind of be like, oh yeah, family, like, yeah, let's watch a family movie. Great. Here's mom sitting on the computer while everybody's watching the Marvel movie. And, they're like, Mom, how can you never watch movies with us? Oh, I'm here. I'm watching it. you know, because I wasn't prioritizing that area and giving myself that space and permission. I felt like if I wasn't producing or doing, then I wasn't working on my goals. And what I've learned, and I love the fact that I'm still on this journey. Like, I'm not on here today saying I've arrived, because once I feel like I've arrived, I'm that bicycle that's not pedaling and I'm going to fall over. So I'm still on that journey of going, you know what? Fun is important. I need to make space for it. It refills me. It gets me, focused on something else other than the things that are in front of me. And it helps when I bring my family in to create memories and things with them. So by me prioritizing fun, I can see how that impacts some of those higher areas, that I have. So that's, so I think that's important, is kind of looking at, how does one area impact another? And so what I work with my clients on is, let's just sit down and think about, dream. What would you like your faith walk to look like? What do you want your family to look like, right? Your friendships, like, who do you want in your inner circle? What do you want your field or career or business to look like? Because I think we just keep mindlessly going from day to day, year to year. And no wonder we don't end up where we want, because we're not really stopping to really get clear on what we want and where we're going. It's like saying you're going to Disney World, but, not really having a plan when you walk out the door. Like, you have to know where you are starting from, you have to know where you're going, and then you can create that plan to get there.
That's so true. Yeah. You have to enter a destination in your GPS.
Yeah.
And when you were talking about fun, it's funny because because most people, we work the whole year to pay ourselves a good vacation, 2 weeks, and to unhook everything. So everything is really unbalanced, because you stress the whole year to finally be able to unhook for 2 weeks, instead of integrating it in and I can totally relate to you with the movies and everything. Kids they pick up on everything,
I know.
and it's just like the fact of not being there. We say kids, but it's really anyone. I have some friends that when we're together, it's like the phone is always out and they're texting in between our conversation. And I'm like, hello.
Right.
So it's really be present in the moment, I guess, is a big part. But I'm listening to you and I can almost hear like a few people saying, yeah, that sounds all good, but there's only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah, you're right. We all have 24 hours. And here's the interesting thing. Some people do amazing things with their life, and some people just, kind of get by, right? And nobody knows who they were and what they did. And not that we're in it for, for people to know who we are and what we do, but I think there's an urgency. I want to be intentional. And so instead of saying, I need to do more, right? Like, focus on doing more of the things that matter. And so that's where it comes back to, like you said, having that destination in your GPS. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of time driving in circles, and instead of just going straight to that place that you wanted to be. And the other interesting thing that I find that we never think about is this. Think about this. When you pull out your phone and you tell it, I want to go to Disney or wherever, at Target or wherever you want to go, right? Your phone actually needs another piece of information first. And that piece of information is where you are right now, right? And I think so often we just keep going because time just keeps going faster and faster, and and the years keep clicking by, and we're not paying attention to where am I in this area right now? What does this look like? Like, let me be honest with myself, and say, there's some areas that could use some improvement, or this is an area that's growing and rocking, and how can I help this, use this to influence some of the other areas? Like, I think both of those are really important things to put together. And so then how do you fit it in? Well, again, when something has value to you, you find time for it. And so I love to use this illustration of Skittles and oranges. And I've seen the same thing with like rocks and sand. So if you have like a jar and you fill it with the Skittles first, the Skittles are all the little things of your daily life. I need to shower. I need to make breakfast. I need to put away the dishes. I need to do laundry. I have to let the dog out. I have to go pick up the dry cleaning. I have to, drop my kids off at school, all the little things, right? If you do all of those things first, you are not going to have space for the oranges, which are, I'm a fruit and veggies girl. So when I think about oranges, I'm thinking, hey, there's a lot of nutrients in there, right? Versus those Skittles that are like no nutritional value whatsoever. So if you put all the Skittles in first and you look at my jar, there's not room to fit the oranges inside the jar because the Skittles took up all that space. And so I think that's the backwards way of how we should do it, but it's the way that most people do life, right? As soon as they wake up, their phone goes on, they're on their computer, they're watching TV, they're checking social media, they're answering, texts. It's like they let all the skittles of life start filling up their day. And then we wonder why we get to the end of the day or the end of the week or end of the year and go, oh, I didn't have time. Well, maybe next year, or, oh, if I had time, when I have time, right? Instead, if we put the oranges in first, those important things, and decide what matters most to me, and then put those things in our day first. And maybe not all of them are going to be, very first thing when you get up, but at least giving them a space on your calendar first. So I like to say, make appointments with yourself. If something's important, say, for example, going to the gym. Well, I know gyms may not all be open right now, but maybe it's just working out at home, whatever that is. Like if it's not first thing in the morning, make an appointment with yourself on your calendar as to when that's going to happen so that nobody else can block time right inside of that because you've made an appointment. Just like if you were going to the doctor, you wouldn't let somebody schedule, a conversation in the middle of your doctor appointment. You'd be like, sorry, I have a doctor appointment. So time block your priorities to make sure that you're getting them in your day. And then what's interesting is when you flip that illustration around and you put the oranges in first, and then you pour the Skittles in, they just kind of fill in around it and everything fits. It's just crazy how that works. And so I think it's looking at those priorities first and not letting the Skittles of life just take, basically rob us of time, right?
Yeah, there's actually a good book on this. It doesn't talk about the Skittle and oranges. I love your analogy because you're right. Skittles is sugar. It's not nutritional. It's like everything you shouldn't take, basically. And then the oranges are like nutritious and you need the vitamin. So I love the whole thing about, for me, that made more sense than the rocks and sand that I've seen before. But the book is called Eat That Frog.
Yes.
If you haven't read that book, read it. It's an easy read, but it's all about, what Lissa just said about putting your priorities first. And, having kids now that are 20 and 22, turning 21 and 23 soon, I remember those moments that I was, panic mode the whole day to make things happen. And those little things that they don't even remember. Right. They don't even remember. And there's stuff I'm like, yeah, I brought you there. And they're like, really? Okay. But they don't remember. But for me, it was so crucial in that moment to have everything perfect and to have the laundry done and the house clean and this and that and that. They really don't care. And that's really not what they remember when they get older. They will keep the values you gave them, and they will keep, the good pieces of advice or whatever that applies to them, really, whatever they choose to keep. And the rest, all of these little moments that we kill ourselves with, they won't bring you anything. Like whether your laundry is folded the day that you're doing your laundry, or if it stays in the dryer for like 3 days, well, restart the dryer. That's a good trick I'm giving you. Restart for 10 minutes and it's all good, right? Yeah, it's all going to be good. So really focus on the priorities. And I really like this illustration. And you have another illustration that, honestly, when I heard you, well, I saw you because it was a webinar, but when I listened to it, I was just like, part of me was like, ouch. But the other part was impressed. And it really opened my eyes. So I will let you talk about the marbles.
Yes, I love this. And I've got this actually sitting right next to my desk so I can see this on the daily because I was a teacher. And so I remember back when I was in a classroom, if you don't make it practical, if you don't help the kids to visualize the concepts that you're teaching to them, they're just these concepts that are in your head. And I think the same thing is true for us as adults. We need those visuals around us so that we are really thinking about them. So the visual of the marbles is really all about the value of time, because the older we get, it's like the years are clicking by faster. I don't know, like how that happens, right? Maybe because we're focused on other things, or our kids, we feel like are growing up faster. I don't know why, but it feels like time just goes, by maybe the days take a long time, but the years go by really, really fast. And so often life just feels like we're just always on a hamster wheel, or we're always in that juggling act with those different areas of our life. And it feels like a three-ring circus that, we're just constantly trying to keep the balls in the air and not drop them or not drop ourselves and things like that. And yet our time is limited. So statistically, men have 76 years that they're going to live, and women are 81. So I like to say I've got longevity in my genes, because I had one grandma that lived to 102 and my other grandma lived to 98. So I figure if I split the difference, I've got 100 years, right? So I'm like, what a great number. Let's shoot for 100, right? Lord willing, we're going to do that and do it well. So what I did is I went to the store and I bought 100 marbles. And I put them in 2 jars. One of them, because I'm already 48, so one of them has 48 in it. The other one has the 52 in it. And each year I take one marble out and it goes like in a little bowl right on my desk where I can like visibly see this every day. And so here's how I look at those jars. And there are 3 things that I say: be grateful, have faith, and live repurposed. So the be grateful is when you look at your past, because those years that have gone by already, you could look at that jar and be like, number one, I'm losing my marbles, like, right? Those are years that have already gone past and, right? What can I do about it? But I think sometimes we look back at the past and we have regret, we have disappointments, we had pain, we had things that didn't turn out the way that we had hoped or planned or dreamed. And so sometimes it can be like, I can't get that time back. And so we could look at that past in that way. But instead, I like to say, be grateful for the years that you've already had, right? Because they're full of memories. They're full of growth. They're full of people and connections. And yes, there are difficult things in there, but they are lessons. And they are what has made you who you are today, right? You wouldn't be who you are today without some of the hard stuff in there. So be grateful for those marbles in the jar that have already passed. Then you look at the jar that has the marbles of the years that are yet to come. So my 52, right? And that's where I have faith, because I don't know what those marbles are going to hold. Only God knows, right? Like I have no idea what people I'm going to meet, what opportunities I'm going to have, what experiences I'm going to have, what memories I'm going to make. All I know is that those times are coming. And so I'm going to have faith when it comes to what my future holds. And then it comes down to that marble. The only one that I can control is the one that I'm living right now, right? And so I think that creates that sense of urgency. And so you can either do this like on your birthday, you could do this on like a New Year's Eve into the new year, but take a marble from the future one and put it in the past one, and ask, before you put it in there, ask yourself some questions like, have I lived this well? Like, what have I done with what I've been given in this moment, right? In this year, however you're quantifying it. Could I have done more? And really, again, not in I'm shaming yourself, but really in being honest and thinking about how you want to live with urgency and what were my priorities, right? And do I want to change some things, right? Because that's the last part, is we can always choose to live repurposed. We can always choose how we're going to live out that marble that we have control over. And so that's what's going to start defining what our priorities are, because we're, seeing how time is passing, and, what I can do is just this one right here in front of me.
I love this illustration. Like when I said it did a bit of an ouch for me, it's like, because I would be looking at the jar coming and seeing it, going down, but I it's acceptance as well. But that jar is also hope. That's where all of your dreams are. That's where all of your future is. But like you said, you focus on the marble that is out there today, which I will actually start doing that January 1st.
Yay.
And it's funny because, we had a few trips and we collected all those beautiful seashell, and they're just in a jar. And it's almost like, when we were collecting them, the kids were like, oh, look, like everyone was special. But now they're just in a big jar and we don't have anything to do with it. So I thought mine will be seashells.
I love it.
Yeah, well, you might as well do something with those seashells. I mean, they've been collected years ago. And then in your past, like you said, there's all your mistakes, but there's all your wisdom as well. And, for all the younger people listening to us that are thinking, oh, maybe life is going by faster for you, but not for me. Wait, you'll get there.
Exactly.
I remember older people telling me that when I was younger, and I was just like, well, that's your issue. That's not mine. And now I'm there and I'm like, what? It's almost the end of 2021. Where did it go?
Yeah.
I mean, and then we're going in 2022. So that is a beautiful illustration, and it also helps you stay intentional. And I think that what I'm getting from everything that you said today is the major factor is to make a decision, whether it be that one decision that you will look at priorities, or each priorities you make a decision on each, and then be intentional. And that's
Yes.
when you will start seeing changes, and that's when you feel also more in control. I
Yes.
remember when I started doing that, it was difficult because I never made a decision before. They told me go to school, I went to school. They told me
Right.
do that, I went. Like, it wasn't decisions. So at first it's scary to do, but you feel more empowered and you feel like you're more in control. So that's, pretty cool.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. There's, so many people can say, like we said, I mean, in the new year, statistically, like over 80% of people don't make it past the first couple of weeks with their resolutions. And I think part of that is because a resolution sounds like something you just kind of like, maybe when you were, raising your glass at the ball dropping and you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. There really hasn't been a whole lot of maybe thought put into that. You don't have a plan for that. You don't have accountability built into that. It was just kind of a, hey, this is what I want to do and this sounds good, versus I'm really going to set some goals. I'm going to create around my priorities, I'm going to create a plan to actually take daily action. And here's one thing I'll say, going back to what we talked about 24 hours in a day, just every day saying, I like to say, what are my 3 oranges? What are the 3 important things I can do today? Right? I may not hit all 7 areas. That's okay. Right? But what are the 3 important things I can do today that are going to move me towards those priorities and towards those goals? And every day, just taking those small steps, that has a compound effect. So that's a great book. And I would recommend to your listeners The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, because he talks about just those little daily actions over time, just like compound interest in our bank accounts, right? It adds up. And the compound effect can work either way. It can either go positive towards what we want, or it can take us away from the things that we want, right? So the compound effect of, coming home from work and turning on Netflix for a couple of hours, the compound effect of having, 1 bowl of ice cream every single night. Like, if your goal is to spend more time with your family, is you turning on Netflix for a couple hours, is that moving you in that direction? Probably not. I mean, yes, there's sometimes a shared time that we're doing that, but for the most time, it's just, it's just taking up space. Or the bowl of ice cream, if your goal is to release that weight or to really work on improving your health, we don't think in the moment that one thing is going to be a really big deal. Either way, like, we either think it's not going to negatively affect us that much, or we don't think, oh, if I do this one thing, like, I don't have time to work out at the gym, so I'm just not going to do anything, But what if you did a minute of squats, a minute of wall push-ups, and a minute of jumping jacks? Like, that's, going to move you at least a little bit in that direction versus nothing. So taking the small steps, I think, is really key. And then accountability. I mean, I think hands down, we can have this great priorities. We can have a great plan. We can even have our goals all written out, right? But if we do not have someone other than ourselves, guess what's going to happen? We'll be off in the ditch. We'll be ringing in another new year or another birthday, and we'll be looking at that marble going, maybe next year, because we can't just keep ourselves on track. I don't think it's possible. What
Well,
do you
we
think?
all have like our 2 voices, and we all have our little demons. So when you're with yourself, only with yourself too long, at some point, I feel like those voices are becoming louder. And no,
Yeah.
I don't have a, I don't have an illness. I'm just very aware of, like, when you tell yourself, oh, it doesn't matter, well, that's your negative voice that is talking to you. And then if you don't have someone to put you back on track, and that's why I feel a coach is so important. And if you don't want to have a coach, or it's not in your plans for now, there's so many different podcasts and YouTube videos that you have to discipline yourself, let's say, to watch every day. Or you can also have like an accountability partner. So have a friend, whether it's for a business or working out or just taking care of yourself. If you have an accountability with a friend, and it's just like one text a day or one call a day, like, yeah, took care of myself today,
Yeah.
it keeps you on track. And it
Right.
sounds silly to do, but when I started doing that, it programs your brain during the day that you will have to send an answer at night. And yes,
Mhm.
you can lie and you can say I did it and you didn't, but that's you're lying to yourself.
You
So,
know, right?
there's no
Yeah.
point. But I mean, if you're doing it honestly, your brain the whole day thinks, oh, I need to have something to say. So, at some point you're like, oh, I'll just do it. It's going to be
Yeah.
easier than
Yeah.
giving the excuse of why I didn't do it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So
And
for a long time, I made the mistake of just doing it my own. And again, I love those ideas of listening to podcasts and, taking the courses and reading the books and things like that. And, I got to a certain point, of doing that. Of course, there were times we let ourselves off the hook. We make excuses. We quietly quit, things like that happen when it's just us. Having somebody that is helping you, a friend, a family member, I think is good, but you just have to choose wisely. Because if they're not on the same page, if they're not truly committed to taking, action towards their priorities and their goals on a regular basis, they may be kind of a good support for a couple of days or weeks or months, but oftentimes they're going to be the ones that discourage us or distract us or detour us, and then we're in the ditch, right? And we're not on the road. For me, once I started working with a coach, I saw the exponential growth that was happening, right? And it's just amazing. And you look at any successful person, they've got people that are speaking into their life, right? They have coaches, they have people that are not emotionally attached to them, like a friend or family member, who's not afraid to say, hey, this is what you said was important, but I see you doing this. You say you're paying off debt, but I see you posting all these things that you're buying. You say you're, releasing the weight, but I see, and kind of helping you see those blind spots and helping you, create a plan with things that, you put a couple minds together. It's amazing what you can come up with. A few months ago, I heard this quote. I was listening to a podcast because I love podcasts too. And I heard this quote that I have not forgotten. And I had no idea it was going to come out of my mouth as often as it does. And it is, never DIY your greatest priorities. And it just hit me. Like, I remember where I was. I was sitting on my back deck. It was like July, so it was warm out. I was eating lunch. The dogs were next to me, of course, begging for, whatever I would give them. And when she said that, it just really resonated with me. I'm like, you are so right. For so long, I have DIY'd my priorities, and, they've gotten me so far, but, we get help with the little things, getting our hair done, getting our nails done, getting our house clean, getting our taxes filed, there's so many things that we could help with. And then we think, I can handle all the rest of this stuff. I got it. I'm going to figure this out, and I'm just going to make it work. And I was like, yeah, right. Like, why not have somebody else who can help me to really take a look at my priorities, who can help me to really set goals around them, who can help me to create a plan and be accountable to daily action, towards that. Like, that is worth its weight in gold, because I will get farther faster by having someone like that on my team than just trying to figure it out all by myself.
yeah, and that person is like usually your best cheerleader and is also your best teacher. They
Yes.
hold a few different roles. I absolutely agree with you. We were not, I think we were not brought up that way to have a coach. But if you look at any good sports team or athlete, even if it's a singular sport, they all have a coach. None of
Right.
them get on the field or on the rink or in the court and just do the sport that they're doing. They all have a coach, because someone has to see externally what is amazing about you and what needs improvement, and you need to bounce it back on someone else. So Lissa, to close, I know you are an amazing life coach. So if people want to reach you, and I also know that you have an amazing program that is super duper affordable. Like, I'm telling you, people, it's like it's going to be less than your Starbucks every month. How can people reach you?
Yeah. So you can find me, Lissa Figgins, which is 2 G's in Figgins, anywhere on social. My website is lissafiggins.com. And you're right. Like, one of my favorite things to share, if people are looking for coaching, again, like, we can take a deeper dive, and I would love to do a free priorities audit, so that we can look at where you are in those 7 areas and where you want to be, and, start talking about how you can get there faster. But for people who aren't ready for coaching, I've got this amazing tool that I share that just has made the biggest difference in not only figuring out what my priorities are, but then in designing that plan and being accountable on a daily basis. And like you said, it's just a matter of value, right? We'll go and we'll spend money at Starbucks or Target or Amazon without even thinking about it, a little bit here, a little bit there, but really, what are we getting out of it? And if we could actually invest in ourselves in this year, like, where could you be 12 months from now if you are willing to invest just a little bit in you? I think that it's going to come back tenfold and then some, because you're worth the investment, right? And anytime you invest in yourself, it will give a good return on investment.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lissa, for being with us today. And thank you, everyone, for listening to us. Please send us your comments, and I'll post all the information on how to reach Lissa if you want to take advantage of all this beautiful wisdom. And I will see you all next week.